Hello and welcome to the Caged In podcast. I'm your host, Petros, and this week I will be talking about Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. We are back in that fiery flamed saddle to ride once again. And I had the absolute pleasure of being joined by Bob Turnbull of Tonight with Bob and Joe. You may remember those guys. They have both been on the podcast and they have been talked about many a time, and I am a big fan of their podcast, which you can find wherever you get podcasts, and especially at the moment you can find them on YouTube with their new series, The Infinite Pub Crawl, in which they try and drink in every pub in Brighton town. They've released 2 episodes so far and they are fantastic. I would very much implore you to listen to those guys and listen to that. But before we get into the conversation that I had with Bob, it's time to step over and have a look what my old friend, the Anagram Hunter, has to say about this film. And does he have some mystic magical powers to tell us something about Ghost Rider and what it will be? So, the Anagram we have this week for Ghost Rider is, we've got 2. We've got 2 little anagrams, which are Spirit of Vengeance equals Petros and Cage in 5. I'm not sure what that is supposed to imply. It's quite cryptic. So me and Cage in 5. So I guess Petros and Cage in 5 could very much be that in 5 minutes Cage will call me. Well, that would be great. Or I don't know. That's baffled me, that one. Should have really read this before, but I like to come in fresh. And the second one, I really like the second one. This incorporates the whole title. So this incorporates Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, and the anagram that he's come up with is Petros, open brackets, of Caged In, close brackets, is never right. Many of you may believe that, and if you do believe that I am never right, please get in touch with the podcast on all the channels you can. So that's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Caged In Pod. Or you can always email me, which is cagedinpod@gmail.com. And you can find the Anagram Hunter on Twitter, which is Thomas_W_Hunter, for all of your anagram needs. I'm sure if I don't want to speak for him, but if you throw him some titles for films, he will give you some anagrams. But don't all be rushing to do that, because he may be swamped, and yeah, we don't want that for him. Just look at the books he's released, and look at the kind of output he has on his Twitter. He will release anagrams now and then, and they're always fun. So yeah, now let's listen to me and Bob talk about Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance. Hello, just a quick one before we get started with this episode. I feel it's only right to say, I don't know how to say this and I don't know what to say, but I know there's one thing that certainly needs to be said, and that is that Black Lives Matter, and they have always mattered, and they will always matter. So please take your time to do what you can, whether that's sign petitions, donate, or join marches and show solidarity to those people who are oppressed. And in small ways, I hope that we can make changes. I very much think that this has gone on for way too long. And take this time, please, to look at your own privilege and educate yourself very much in the ways of the Black experience. And you can do that in many ways, through films, podcasts, talks. Just educate yourselves, please. And I will be putting in the description to this episode a document, which is a very handy document, in ways that you can help. Just felt it was a right thing to say, and we can do something, and it would have been crass and wrong not to have said something about what is going on. But please do what you can, and very much enjoy Caged In. Nick Cage is back in the saddle as Johnny Blaze, the stunt rider who made a pact with Lucifer and has become his errand boy as the Ghost Rider, the flaming, skulled Marvel character. However, apart from his casting, everything in this film has changed. We no longer see Eva Mendes. The devil this time is played by Kieran Hines, and the Crank directors Neveldine and Taylor bring their unique hands-on filmmaking to shape this Marvel property. One thing that hasn't changed is I'm talking about it, and the original Ghost Rider film guest is back with me as well. Frequent Caged In collaborator and co-conspirator Bob Turnbull. How are you, Bob?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm adjusting to the new way of life that we have now. That we live inside of our houses and inside of computer screens for other people. But
yeah, it's perfect for nerds like us, eh?
Yeah, like as somebody who's like suffered with depression and like anxiety throughout his life, I've kind of like been waiting for this to happen almost. Like, not in like a downer way, just in the fact that like when it's government conscripted to stay inside of your home, it's like I've had depressive episodes where I'm like I don't want to leave the house for a month. Like, yeah. Give me 6 weeks, easy. Come on. So let's get.
I must say that I'm really glad that you invited me back for the second film. For a while, I thought maybe you just find a better guest and I'd be out of the picture. So I do feel quite privileged.
No. There's a few old favourites. I kind of got into a bit of trouble, and I feel like I should publicly apologise almost. I was supposed to have like just because there was a trailing massive hiatus on this podcast, and kind of I had cast it out of my mind. Like I was at the point of like, no, Caged In is never coming back. To me, it was dead. Like, but little did I know there were some smoking embers that were going to like reignite, just like how there's a massive gap between Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Like, yeah. I came back flaming skull, ready to do it, and I had agreed all those years back to have a fellow podcaster, the Betamax Video Club. I'll give him a shout out. It's the least I could do. I had said to him back then that I would have him on to talk about Kick-Ass, and then like.
Oh yeah,
got another guest. Like when I came back, not even like just very complacently, not even thinking about it, and I kind of got like a reply to a tweet saying like, I guess I'm not doing Kick-Ass then. And I was like, I've like,
that's heartbreaking.
I felt terrible. Since like, I'm like, oh shit, like.
Oh no, man!
And like
all the fame has gone to your head.
Yeah, maybe. Well, like I don't know. Like I've got the numbers. I might be getting people of note on this podcast, but the numbers like do not correlate. Like it's not like all of a sudden I'm going to be selling out Wembley anytime soon with Caged In live with it being locked down, and to my star isn't that bright.
I think it could happen, man, before you know it, you know. That's it. I believe. So, I mean, I don't want to lead the interview. You lead the interview. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, like, I don't think I've ever asked you this question before. It's a question I've been asking a lot recently to my guests is, are you a Nicolas Cage fan before we dissect this film, Bob? Would you consider yourself?
I think without question, I'm a Nicolas Cage fan. I like to think that as soon as I saw him, whenever it was, I don't know what my first Cage experience was. Actually, that maybe you were going to ask that question, but I don't know. But as soon as I saw him, I always loved him, and I'd like to say, however it sounds, that I liked him before it was cool to like him. I'm just going to say that.
Well, no, I think it's like quite cool now to dislike him. Like I see a lot of people like shitting on him and just kind of like yeah, he's kind of become this meme and people kind of troll him and stuff like that. And it's just like what they don't quite understand is he is like a craftsman, like who knows what he's doing. Like
He's in on it.
He's in on it. Yeah, yeah. And at the end of the day, like I've used this analogy a lot, and it's I believe I heard it on an interview with Stephen Graham, who said that like at the end of the day, I may do these films with Scorsese, I may do like films with whoever, but at the end of the day, like I see my role as that of like a painter decorator that I need to like. It's a job at the end of the day, and if I need to provide food for my family, it could be this film or that film. I'm not gonna.
I've heard that from fine artists before as well. I've heard painters say that. I've just got to put the bread on the table, and I always think I'm always a little bit dubious about that. I'm like, yeah, you say that, but there's more to it than you're letting on. But I think with Cage is that even in his worst roles, in his worst films, he always brings something to the table that nobody else could have. And oftentimes he saves shit films just by his presence.
Well, yeah, that is definitely true, and he's kind of got like this unique thing that like he can slot in to these kind of like, want for a better word, straight to DVD movies.
Yeah,
but then has these moments of brilliance in like he'll take the role of a dice, and there's a very famous Funny or Die clip that is Nicolas Cage's agent, and it's kind of like throughout the clip the premises for film get more ludicrous and more ludicrous and more ludicrous.
Well,
we hear
yeah.
Nicolas Cage's voice on the other end of the phone kind of saying like, well, I'll take it. And it's kind of like that I think that is at the height of like the memedom of what Nicolas Cage has become.
Sure.
But like I'm very much a firm advocate that he is a great actor, and again, something that has been brought up a lot in a conversation I've had recently is, given the right script and the right director,
well, he's a fucking
if someone can harness kind of that raw energy, it
well, given the right script, Cage is a fucking Oscar nominee.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the reality. You know,
well, Oscar winner.
Oscar could have been. What did he win the Oscar?
He won the Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas. Yeah.
I didn't know that he actually won it. I thought he was a nominee for some reason. That's brilliant. I feel like I'm celebrating right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Fuck.
I think 2-time nominee, 1-time winner. He may have been nominated.
Wait, so he got like an Oscar before DiCaprio got an Oscar?
Yeah. But in the game longer.
Yes, true. True.
Yeah. Like,
to be fair, if I had to, I know this is a tough question. I don't know why I'm even saying it, but if I had to erase Leonardo DiCaprio's entire film history or Cage's film history, I'd erase DiCaprio's easily, without doubt.
Wow, that's but that they're almost not as comparable. Cage is unlike any other actor because just the sheer volume of output that he has provided to watchers and people out there is he's burgeoning on 100 films like plus at the moment.
And that's incredible.
Like from my conversation recently with Walter Hickey, like that's why he picked him as someone to study in kind of a data
absolutely
way, is that it's somebody who has like this just what a pool of data to pull from 100 films. It's and such a varying like range of films and range of quality, like depending on your tastes. But like one of the points he made, which brings me nicely to Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, is that Cage has very much not done like long-standing franchises. He has managed to do a variety of stuff. This is like the only one of 2 sequels he has ever done. And like
so is this a national treasure?
This a national treasure, yeah. only sequels he's ever done. And arguably, you could not call Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance even a sequel.
Oh, I know why you're saying that. I know why you're saying that.
Just very much like you could watch this film without ever seeing Ghost Rider and still enjoy it, right?
Yeah, you could. I think it would be weird though. But I mean, how soon should I jump into this? I feel like
jump away.
Can we just
yeah, jump away.
Right. Well, I mean, okay. I mean, like I don't know whether people have seen it or not. The film uses animation sequences throughout. Well, maybe like twice, 3 times. I don't know, in the whole movie, to try to give the backstory, the origin story of Ghost Rider, which you could say, well, that's a clever idea because we kind of, I think everyone is tired of origin stories. We don't need to see it again. But the animation provides, we get Nicolas Cage's voiceover, and the animation provides this kind of brief rundown of what's going on. And it's not bad. The animation is not bad. It's in a way, it's pretty good, for what it is. But the problem is that if you have seen the first one, it's slightly jarring because you're seeing events that you remember from the original with like Peter Fonda and the circus and the fair and the fucking Evel Knievel fairground suddenly replaced with what looks like a sort of Waitrose car park.
Well, it's bizarre in that like this is a film that is like problematic in a way because like from doing the research and stuff like that, Peter Fonda himself read 5 pages of the script and then declined. So like,
oh fuck's sake.
Like,
what did he love so much about the original that he wasn't finding in this?
I don't know. Like, and it's been a long while since I've watched the original, but I think it may be my love for, let's say, first off the bat, like, it's almost like a near like genius stroke to bring in like Neveldine and Taylor in that they at the time.
I agree. I actually literally can't think of a better sort of duo, better director, whatever, to have for this particular franchise.
And you can very much see, like you saying about the use of animation, there is also other visual flares that they bring, whether it be like a kind of Family Guy-esque cutaway that they use in moments. Like there's a sequence with Idris Elba where he his character. So yeah, we should probably like back up in a second about like the kind of brief broad strokes of this plot. But there is a moment Idris Elba's character who plays Moreau, like a kind of noble monk-esque like adventure character.
He's a French wino.
Yeah. And he's not the only one that's in this film. But we'll get to another famous Frenchman a little later on. He like in this kind of beautiful shot, like which I imagine was like filmed on wires, and like from what I know of Neveldine and Taylor, like they try and do as much stuff in regards to filming, like. A lot of the interviews with Nicolas Cage, he says like a lot of their filming, like Mark Neveldine is out on his actual rollerblades with the camera, holding onto motorbikes.
That's so cool.
On wires, like with the camera jutting away. This moment, we see Idris Elba flying through the sky, and then later on, we get this moment, like to bring this background to what I was talking about. We get this moment of him explaining, like, by the graces of God, I was saved. Then we just get this kind of like brief shot of him like hanging out of a tree. It's like a great.
Oh, that's so it's so weird.
But it's a great moment of kind of like levity and like a joke that. For me, I wanted more of that, but definitely showed the like shine of like Neveldine and Taylor's like kind of their sensibilities and their kind of kinetic way of filmmaking.
They also clearly have a great sense of humor as well, and when they're allowed to do what they want, they've got a great sense of humor, And they are also. I mean, really, this is one of the best things I can say about the film is that the editing is super slick. You know, I never felt bored by the editing. It's always it's super dynamic, just like Crank. You know, and Crank 2. It's got that kind of crazy. You really feel it's better than, like Ang Lee's Hulk tries to do like comic book panels, and it's really dodgy. But it doesn't feel like that. It actually it functions as cinema, but also in a very fast paced kind of comic booky way. So they really did nail that. And, that's one thing that the original film could have used,
Well, one of the things that this film kind of like benefits from as well is that it's something I didn't know until kind of like digging around in this film, is that all of the times that we see Ghost Rider on screen in the original, it's not Nicolas Cage.
Oh, fuck. I didn't know that.
Whereas this film, it is Nick Cage, and like to hear his like kind of background as to like what he was doing on set to get into this role is fantastic. I'll play a brief clip to just
okay.
Okay,
I'm excited
to get you in the mood, well, not in the mood, but like to kind of show you what I mean. Like, this is him saying what it was like getting into character.
I would paint my face in sort of like an Afro-Caribbean voodoo icon or a New Orleanian voodoo icon, Baron Samedi. I'd put black contacts in my eyes. I would put bits of rock that had a frequency to it, or allegedly had a frequency to it. I would sew Egyptian artifacts into my costume, and I wouldn't talk to anybody.
Wow.
I know, right?
Oh, that is brilliant. I mean, what more can you say?
But like, the fact he went to those like levels of kind of getting into this character, a character that he is very much like lived with for a while, and in another interview he says like he didn't quite he seemed quite miffed as to why he didn't get to play the Ghost Rider in the first film.
First one, yeah, it does make sense. But I guess it's because maybe it was a stunt man that played it. Oh, I don't. Yeah.
Whereas, like this film, I very much think it would be like Neveldine and Taylor, in that like they kind of almost have this stunt man like way of filmmaking themselves. As I said, like this very hands-on approach to filmmaking. They're there
on the roller skates.
Yeah, well, they're there getting their hands in the mud, kind of like, fuck it, if something needs to be done, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's fucking brilliant.
So why not let Cage like do what he needs to do, and like what better way to kind of, and I do feel like from hearing that it definitely informs the character of the Ghost Rider in this film, because it's an interesting way, because this kind of, we don't really have a sense of like the time passed since the first one, but we can tell that Johnny Blaze has been living with this kind of dichotomy of being the Ghost Rider for some time, very much like how in the MCU they kind of portray Bruce Banner and the Hulk, in that like he like, especially in I believe it's Avengers Endgame, they kind of like, he's been living with the like Hulk inside of him. Well, very much in that film it's the Hulk outside of him, but it's kind of like found a middle ground where they both live.
Where the Hulk can wear a little suit.
Yeah. Where he's glasses, Professor Hulk, as opposed to as opposed to Bruce or the Hulk. In this, he's very much he's living that life as like both. Well, like not.
I mean, I would have actually. I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, he's in when we're first introduced to him. He's in this dark warehouse. Where is it? Is it Bulgaria or is it Bucharest or something? Some crazy Eastern European place.
It's filmed in Romania. Yes,
Romania. But I would have actually kind of liked a bit more of that stuff. One thing that sort of I dislike about the film is that it doesn't begin with Ghost Rider. You get this kind of beginning bit, and then Ghost Rider's in a warehouse, and then immediately is kind of into the story. I'd like to have seen sort of Cage going mental in that dark warehouse, because I really love that as a setting.
Well, it's this thing, the film kind of, like you said, it starts off with a kind of like prelude of just kind of setting the like wheels in motion, really, of what the thrust of this film is.
Fucking Giles.
Yes.
Giles from Buffy, man. I couldn't believe it. And he's for like 2 seconds as well.
Well, yeah, I put this out on Twitter to see what people's like kind of thoughts of this film was, and within minutes I got a response which was Giles is massively underutilized within this film.
Yeah, definitely. He basically gets a gun put in his face, and then as soon as that's it.
So yeah, the film kind of follows the plot of there is a child called Danny, and at the start we don't know kind of like what his purpose is, and it's quite a formulaic plot. If we like, it's kind of this child has some significance. The good guys want to like make sure he's safe. The bad guys want him for their nefarious.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot. I thought the plot was a lot like Terminator 2.
Yes, yeah.
And also, you got this the leather jacket wearing kind of anti-hero as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting.
I just think that, yeah.
Well, very good comparison as well, because very much in the first Ghost Rider, he is working for the devil.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, he is like recruited by like priests and monks to kind of work on behalf of the righteous to make sure that this child doesn't have his soul brought into damnation and kind of like.
Yeah. Also, as a bit of a spoiler as well, like kind of by the end of it, he's kind of sort of been blessed by the angels. He has a kind of angelic power.
Well, one of
for 2 seconds.
One of the great things we get from this film is a backstory on the Ghost Rider and like where the demon itself comes from. So like we get another animated sequence where we see it used like the demon itself used to be an angel that was corrupted, and it used to be the angel of justice, and then was corrupted by Satan and turned into a demon of vengeance, which is like that would have been like. I feel like this film, in a way, is kind of like hamstrung by the first, in a way that like that kind of like dove headlong into like plot and just kind of like there's a guy with a flaming skull. Let's get him up on screen as quick as possible. Whereas this like is like, oh right, now we need to fill in the gaps where that film didn't.
It really does want to exist independently. It definitely has that vibe, and I can understand why, because I actually think I also think the Neveldine Taylor vision is their atmosphere that they're trying to set was way better, way more succinct than the last vision. I mean, he's eating fucking jelly beans in the first film. I don't know who came up with that, but it's that kind of idea. It has that jelly bean vibe. The whole first film. And this film, there's no fucking jelly beans. I think even Nicolas Cage said, oh no, he'll be drinking in this film. There'll be no fucking jelly beans. But it does have that vibe, throughout. Like even when it's not doing, even when it's not successful, it's still kind of like it's got a great atmosphere for what they're trying to achieve. I can really feel what they're trying to do.
Well, my analogy for this film is the first film is very much like a Judas Priest, like kind of glammy metal, like aesthetic to it. Like even the design of the Ghost Rider, he's very much like spikes on his jacket. It's very cartoonish.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas this film is very much like a bit more grimy and grungy looking, and like the jacket when he's the Ghost Rider is much more like organic. Yeah, organic looking, and the skull itself looks charred and burnt.
It looks better.
Yeah. And even like we never see a full transformation in this film. Like we never get like a full transformation, but like we get these kind of brilliant shots. And like one in particular I want to mention is that one where he's like cruising down a tunnel.
Oh yeah,
and his
I know what you're talking
eyes bulging and like kind of going black, and like you can tell like fuck, the Ghost Rider's coming.
Man. You know what I actually thought of when I was watching that scene? I thought of Terry Gilliam.
Oh, really?
I thought it's so bizarre. It's so crazy. It almost felt like it could be a sequence in like Fear and Loathing or something in a sort of more modern, sort of context. It had that kind of crazy, almost like slightly, almost dodgy sort of David Lynch, Twin Peaks new CGI kind of vibe to it. Like kind of done on a budget, but really mad things happening all at once that just don't make sense. And I was like, this is art. This isn't entertainment. That's what I thought when I saw that particular shot.
Well, the thing is with this film is that very much, I think, well, no, I know that the original plan for this film it was going to be an R-rated film, and like very much in keeping with the like Neveldine Taylor aesthetic up until that point, and like
you're breaking my heart just talking about this.
And it is that thing that like I wish the kind of studio system, like it's reported that Sony at the last moment kind of like bottled out of the whole thing of doing this kind of more hard R Ghost Rider. I think like in the whole grand scheme of superhero films, we would have like been so far ahead at this point. Like
yeah, totally.
Like Deadpool.
I mean, if you think about it, we've had Deadpool, we've had Deadpool, and we've had Wolverine. Was it Logan, the Wolverine one?
Yeah.
And I suppose we've had some more. I suppose we had Watchmen ages ago, but there's only a few of these R-rated. I suppose Kick-Ass actually technically, well, it was 15. Is it 15? But still, there's some crazy violence. There's only been a few of them, but they've all essentially been quite successful, right? So perhaps if Sony had known it back then, I don't really know the timeline, but had they been aware that an R-rated superhero film could have done well, then maybe things would be different. I don't know.
Well, what is bizarre is this film came out in 2011. Like, I'm not sure on the kind of grand like stage of like Hollywood how much that Kick-Ass would have really informed things, and whether the wheels had already gone into motion for this film. Like, I'm not sure on the like the filming schedule and all that kind of stuff. But like, if they had taken that punt at that time, Deadpool would be kind of playing catch up to this, like
the fucking Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would love some blood as well. One of the things that I've always thought maybe there's some Russian constructivist principle to this, that like when you have one frame in a film, you kind of want to be satisfied by seeing a following frame. And so like in Ghost Rider, when he in this film, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, when you see the whip lash at someone, you kind of want to see them get hurt. But actually what you end up seeing is that they just evaporate immediately. And it gives you no sense of satisfaction whatsoever. Whereas it would have been brilliant in a hyper-violent R-rated version of this movie to have seen that whip literally like smash someone's skull in, or like they're like alive and burning alive. I don't know. I'm just imagining. I'd love to have seen the enemies suffer more than they do.
Well, yeah, especially in the fact that his whole like ethos as like a character is that he punishes the wicked. Like, even though he is like a harbinger for the devil, like and I think it's very clever. Like, speaking about like the kind of character of the devil, it's clever how they explain away in this film how like the devil shapeshifts throughout time and kind of
that is cool.
Uses human like conduits to perform his evil acts throughout history. And
I must say as well, I think Peter Fonda is a very cool guy. Is he still alive? I'm not sure. Or was a very cool guy. But basically, in this film, I actually prefer this devil. I think he's better.
Well, he's just got
Hines.
Yeah, Kieran Hines, I believe.
Yeah. He's got this like bloody eye, and he's got one half of his face has all gone a bit Zardoz.
Yeah.
It's like drooping down. He's kind of old, and he's like this some sort of scary stroke Satan. And I think really there's a scene where he's talking to the kid, and he's like trying to tell him like he refers to Ghost Rider as being a paper mache flamethrower.
Yes,
which is a bizarre insult. But during that particular scene, you really see Hines going to town on that character, and I was actually genuinely for a moment, I was like kind of a bit creeped out, and I was like, he's done a good job. Whereas Peter Fonda, bless his heart, he's a very cool guy, but he didn't do that with the devil in the first film. He just plays it very like he's playing himself.
Well, unfortunately, Peter Fonda died last year.
Oh fuck!
But
sorry.
No, it's fine. Like, we're not speaking ill of the dead. Like, it's fine. Like,
no, I know. I love him.
Yeah,
I think he's fucking great. I mean, but I didn't know.
Yeah, one of the things to kind of backtrack on the plot of this film is like, the thrust is that Ghost Rider has been kind of brought in by these monks and priests to take refuge with this child who, like, even though, like, we're not supposed to know his true meaning, like, it's very evident quite early on that he is the Antichrist, essentially. He is the son of Satan. And, like,
that's a cool plot.
A tangent here is the character name, Danny Ketch, in the Ghost Rider like comic books, is actually the long lost brother of Johnny Blaze, and takes on the mantle of Ghost Rider after him.
That's bizarre when you start to think about it in the context of the film, because she's a slight love interest, and she's I mean, I say slight. I mean, there's no romance whatsoever.
No, well,
it's the mother.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre that, like, there are moments we kind of have this father-son relationship between Johnny Blaze and, like, Danny.
Yeah, when he's drinking the jug of water in the cafe.
Yeah, and we have no, like, kind of romantic entanglement between, like, the mother Nadja and Johnny Blaze, and it's kind of like, I do commend the film for doing that. I do.
Yeah.
I think that hamstrings a lot of, like, comic book films a lot of the time. Is there's this kind of insistence that there has to be some kind of romantic A, B, C, D plot that, like, otherwise
they could have at least. Sorry to interrupt, man.
No.
They could have at least had a scene where, like, he, like, takes out a little locket with Eva Mendes's face in it, or like goes, "Oh, I've got a girl waiting for me back in the USA."
Well, like, she's another one. Like, Eva Mendes turned down the option to reprise her role for this film. So I don't.
Do you think everyone was a bit freaked out about the fact that they were shooting in Eastern Europe? Do you think they thought it was like a tax dodging exercise or something?
I'm not too sure, because it's obviously it's filmed in, like, Romania and Turkey, which, like, the locations in this film are great.
Wow.
Like, they kind of like provide this otherworldly character to it. Like, that combined with, I guess it's some kind of after effects in, like, the, like, saturation and stuff like that that's kind of, like, done to the imagery.
Those caves, man. Those caves. Like, one of my favorite scenes in the film is actually, it did make me long for a Nicolas Cage, Idris Elba buddy cop film. Is when they're literally sitting down in it's like a kind of chapel cave with all the wine stacked in the holes, and there's the light shining down from the roof. I was like, this is fucking beautiful.
Yeah, there's that. There's, like, the Colosseum scene. So, like,
that's great. Yeah,
this film, like, brings to, like, a point that Johnny Blaze has to bring the child to these group of monks who's headed by no other than Christopher Lambert, the Highlander himself, who again is like, he has seemed to be like, from looking at like stuff, was quite a tricky customer when it came to this film, and that like,
oh really?
Well, like in the Neveldine and Taylor said to him like, well, we want you to shave your head for this film, and he was like, I'll bald cap it, and they were like, no, we want a shaved head, we want a shaved head, and like he put in like 3 months of sword training for this role, which like in the grand
there's almost no swords in it.
But in 3 months, he shaved his head. He went through this extensive like makeup routine to like have these kind of like tattoos all the way down his. Like,
they look good.
Yeah, they look great. Like, from watching the brilliantly titled DVD extra Back in Black documentary, he talks about like they were easier to apply than they were to remove. So it got to a point where Christopher Lambert just went back to his hotel each night wearing the tattoos.
I don't. Oh well, I actually, that's weird that you say that. When I was watching the film, I actually had I thought that, but what I thought instead was they probably filmed all these Lambert scenes in one day, so they didn't have to do the makeup again. I guess that's it's slightly different, but also speaking about that, there are a few really nice little tactile physical things in the film. That moment when I guess there is a brief sword fight between Lambert and the Plague Man, or whatever. What is his character name?
Blackout. Yeah, this kind of
Black.
I think one of the shortcomings of this film is just kind of like the makeup and costume of this character. So he starts off as a guy called Carrigan, who's like this kind of arms dealer who also has a deal with the devil, and his thing is he wants him to track down Johnny Blaze. And
he's a bit of a young Kurt Russell kind of character.
And when he gets killed in this spectacular fight in a quarry,
yeah, it's bizarre.
He manages to like the devil brings him back to life, but all twisted and gnarled, and all of a sudden he possesses the power to decay everything with just but a touch. But like,
yeah,
for one, it's kind of like I'm not sure if it's like the thing of I don't know the mythology of Ghost Rider that well, so I wasn't.
I don't think that's going to help really. But what I would say though is that scene where he changes him, where the devil lifts him up from the rock, it's quite a cool scene. So at least they do that some justice. I didn't actually, just before I forget, talking about practical effects during that fight scene between Blackout and Christopher Lambert. Just afterwards, he decays them all into mummies, and those mummies look shit hot. They look fucking really good. And also, there's another scene in a bridge at one point where there's a massive explosion, and because there's quite a lot of CGI in the film, sometimes looking pretty fucking convincing and sometimes not. This particular explosion on the bridge, I think, is a real explosion. It's a proper like mushroom cloud, and it looks real.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because I know that Neveldine and Taylor very much like to do as much stuff as they can. Like, again, from watching the documentary, there were stunts for this film that just kind of didn't work, and they kind of had to scrap scenes. So like, it felt like very much the kind of chips was stacked up against them specifically for this film, in that it couldn't be this like hard R film. It couldn't be the budget was still relatively low despite it being like a Marvel property, and I don't know. I don't want this to sound like kind of fan worship to Neveldine and Taylor.
Yeah.
But like, from seeing like what they can do on a small budget, obviously, I guess like this is a bit of a harder task because no matter what you do with Ghost Rider, there has to be an element of CGI involved. So
shit, yeah.
that has to that already. Like,
unless you do a Ray Harryhausen, like, clay skull. But yeah,
exactly. So that already is probably taking up like a chunk of your budget. Like,
yeah.
I just feel like they kind of didn't get to do all the things that like not just like ticking off their hit list of like greatest hits in any way, but they don't get
one thing I'd say. Well, sorry to interrupt again, but I was going to say one thing as well. You kind of mentioned it a bit earlier, but talking about like how this time Cage actually got to play Ghost Rider as opposed to last time where he's just Ghost Rider without the skull kind of thing. You could see when he's like, there's a bit where he's just about to fight some of the gangsters at the beginning of the film, and he's doing this kind of crazy head tilt thing where he's getting ready to sort of do something mental, and you can really tell that it's Cage underneath the skull. And when he finally does for the first time, does the penance stare where he stares into their eyes, you can see from the actor's expression, they're really looking up at Nicolas Cage. And there is something fucking brilliant about that. But what I wish when I saw that is I thought, oh God, I wish as a bonus feature, like a kind of director's cut or whatever, they'd done a version of it where you see Cage all the time.
Oh, that would have been great, especially considering like from listening to that clip that he would have been in kind of like voodoo like face paint and like wearing black contacts. That would have been,
I mean, it couldn't have been, it wouldn't be that hard to edit that, surely. Like just it's the same thing but without I mean it would have been brilliant.
Well, it's the thing as well, like I think that him playing Ghost Rider as well as Johnny Blaze informs Johnny Blaze especially in that like Cage plays it for me like he's kind of like a cocaine addict, and like they're like he's kind of like got this jittery energy to him where he's like trying to like
they sort of allude to that. They allude to that a couple of times as well. There's a few moments that are a bit like in a way they're a bit like there's a scene in the hospital where he wakes up and he's like, Valium, get me Valium. And the woman's like, oh, I can't. Oh, I don't know. You've already had enough or whatever. And he's taking the pill boxes off the shelf. It's a bit like fucking the last one we did together, man. It's a bit like Port of Call, New Orleans, Bad Lieutenant. But it's also this kind of crazy drug fueled thing, which has a bit of a Crank vibe as well. Like take as many drugs as I can, like snort the coke off the floor, kind of vibe.
Well, yeah, it's that thing. He's playing Johnny Blaze how like Robert Downey Jr. plays every role he ever does, like a man who really wants to take cocaine but can't.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Like this kind of like nervous.
Can I also just say out of note, I mean, when you were talking about earlier the animation sequence where it talks about the devil being these different characters and it shows you how he takes on different incarnations. Why did they pick Jerry Springer?
I think for a gag. But like
it seems a bit mean.
And even
I was like, fucking hell.
Even in context of this film, like time-wise, a very outdated gag at that, if it is a gag.
Yeah. I'd love to know that. I'd love to ask the directors what was going on there specifically.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
But I mean, there are great bits as well. Like when he's doing it's better than the first penance stare. It's when he's talking to some guy and his face is changing as he's talking to him. And he's like, you're scraping at the door.
Yeah.
He's doing this crazy moment. It's really quite good. I think actually I've tried to watch this film a couple of times and only made it a few scenes in. But today was the first time I've actually watched it all the way through. And I don't know if I'm older or if I was just excited about talking to you, but somehow I really enjoyed those changing the face all the time scenes way more than I did in the past. I thought they were shit when I first saw them, but now I love them. So I don't know what that is exactly.
Well, this film, like, I don't know. it kind of like builds on things from the first one and like stuff that is touched on in the first. Like we get the whole mythos of any vehicle that he rides will become the Ghost Rider.
That's cool. That's a cool idea. I would love to see when the kid is like, "Oh, so what if you rode a camel?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh." I mean, that would be fucking brilliant. I'd love to see a flaming camel.
But this, like, we see him like take on cranes, we see him take on trucks, and it's like really utilizing that kind of like. I wish I could see more of that, like that kind of like
I know.
crazy stuff. And that's the thing throughout this film, we get glimpses of greatness, whether it be like. It kind of cheapens it that they use it twice, but that image of like when the Ghost Rider has to take a piss, and like it's just like this like fire. Yeah.
I don't mind seeing it twice, weirdly, but what I do mind is that it's not used in an actual scene. It's sort of used in a kind of like, remember, like you were saying about Family Guy. It's used in a kind of remember that day when you pissed fire, kind of thing.
It's like which
is bizarre because like, couldn't we have at least seen him like destroy the construction site and then piss on the villain or something with fire? That would have been great.
Well, I feel like that is something that like would have been held back for the R cut, or like they were going, what can we sneak? Almost like you hear in a lot of productions, whether it be TV or film. What can we sneak by the sensors, and like how can we get this?
Yeah, actually, I've no idea why I'm mentioning this in a Ghost Rider podcast, but I briefly saw a clip from Diary of a Wimpy Kid the other day with some pretty graphic pissing going on, which lets me know that you can piss in a film that's like a 12A, no problem. But I guess pissing on a villain might be too far.
Yeah, I get
pissing fire on a villain, especially, I suppose, that's the extra thing you can't do. Also, one thing. Sorry, one sec. The mask. I was reminded of the mask in that particular scene with the crazy crane, because he spits the bullets out at him.
Yes.
And that whole moment had a very Mask vibe to it. And also, in the same way as the Mask, he does these crazy violent things, but you don't see the bloody reaction of what happens. So he'll have a Tommy gun, like, a Tommy gun, and he kills them all. But you don't see him actually kill them. You don't see them bleeding out. And it was just the same in this film.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Bob, is it like near on impossible to make the character of Ghost Rider look good on film? Like, is there a way that Ghost Rider can kind of... the character of Ghost Rider himself, because especially in this film, he takes up a lot of the screen time, is that like... can that character be like a relatable character? Like, I feel like that's one of the things that's kind of hard about this franchise.
I mean, obviously, I think what makes us connect to him in the first one, if anything, other than our sort of mutual desire, like we wish we could be daredevils, is essentially that we think it's a beautiful idea that he sold his soul to try to save his dad's life. Like that to us is like, oh, well, that's a pretty big deal, you know. And so that's our real connection to him. But aside from that, we don't have any actual relationship to him other than that. Well, I mean, obviously, he's having a tough time because he's because his soul has been sold. It's never quite explicit about, like, is he constantly in pain? I know that he's in pain when his skull is burning. I think they indicate that. I in preparation for this podcast, Petros, I read the comic that David S. Goyer wrote this script based on, which is a Garth Ennis. The Ennis?
Yes, yeah.
The guy, I think he also did Preacher, right?
Yeah.
And actually, the comic, you can see little glimmers of it. I don't see much in how they ended up adapting it, but it begins with Ghost Rider in Hell. It's about these angels trying to make a deal with Ghost Rider to say that we'll get you out of hell, which is this deal is obviously in the film as well. If you kill this angel that's on Earth, kind of thing. And it's very much like a road trip movie, kind of like a story, like how in Preacher it's a kind of road trip as well. with all these kind of grotesque characters, and rather than arse face, they have like, I don't know, like ass nose or something. It's like they've got the equivalent of that, where like the demon, like he puts someone's head inside their arse, and then that's their henchman. And it's kind of like this kind of thing. And I could imagine, as I was reading it, I was like, I can imagine the Taylor, these directors adapting that. And I was kind of getting excited about it. But then when watching it, it doesn't have much of that at all. But even in that comic, there is still no personality to Ghost Rider. He is still just a fiery skull guy driving around, kind of just maybe working for his own, like trying to get out of hell, kind of maybe that would help. But there is still it's very hard for us. It's almost impossible to relate to him.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Like, that's the thing, going into this film, I kind of, all the components lined up. I was like, I really want to enjoy this film. And like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not sure whether it is the fact that it's kind of like the vision was mired at all by studios or like people upstairs, as it were, or I'm not sure what it is, but like, or it is this kind of thing that Ghost Rider as a character is hard to relate to. Like I think Johnny Blaze, the character Johnny Blaze, is done really well, especially like the kind of struggle he has. And like this film leads to a point where he says like, he brings Danny to the monks headed by Christopher Lambert, and Moreau's like deal with him was, if you do this, we will rid you of this curse.
Pretty sexy proposition. Yeah.
But like many things, you realise that you kind of need that, I don't know, dark side of you to maybe progress, in that like he realizes very quickly, like the thing is, like the end of this film, it kind of like all kind of goes very quickly.
Oh yeah, so quick.
Like you could almost like be like, come on, like you could hear someone go like, come on, wrap it up. And it's like, whoa. Like you got, it's like when you're kind of getting to a point. Yeah, we get to this point in a Colosseum, which is actually filmed in like an actual real ancient Greek.
And it genuinely looked really good as well. When you see all the monks from afar, when you look at them all, I was like, this is beautiful. You know, I also felt that they were trying to, sometimes they were, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure they had alternating camera crews as well, but some of their like more close up zoomed in stuff was much less beautiful. But when they actually pan back and you see like whole scenes, like even like Lambert's circle before they become the gargoyles or the mummies or whatever, which they still look really cool. But when you pan back and you see all of them in a circle, it looks fucking brilliant. I mean, when I say it means brilliant, I don't mean for a Marvel film or for a film like this. I mean, it legit looks really good.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, so a lot of this film, like there's so many things playing in this film's favour, which, like, for me, like, really, I don't know if I'm too close to it at the moment, because I only watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
That thing of like,
I only watched it today.
Yeah, what is it that like kind of just didn't work for me? Like, and it's a real shame. Like,
you know, one thing I'll say about the ending that I did like is that it's confusing, but when he has that fight with the devil, you know, the devil really shouldn't be scared at all. I mean, the devil's dialogue is kind of like he's not scared, but he looks proper scared. Probably because Cage is right in his fucking schnoz, like, you know, it's going fucking mental. But it's quite a good scene when he launches him into the air with a chain. It's very satisfying. It's the kind of satisfaction you don't get from when he kills most goons throughout the movie.
Yeah.
As well. So it's actually kind of a good moment of like, yeah, like Ghost Rider actually fucking did that. It's kind of, and there's a few kind of like video game moments in it that have that kind of quality, but that's definitely the best. I felt quite like happy when the devil was flung into the sky, which is more than I could say for a lot of things like that in other superhero films, you know.
Well, we get that moment as well because Danny's soul is like there's this rich, like the whole film kind of culminates in. It is a very formulaic plot we've seen in a lot of things, as Bob said earlier. It's a Terminator 2-esque plot in that the bad guys want this kid, the good guys want to make sure this kid is fine. Christopher Lambert and his monks are like, well, he's the devil's child, so we're the only way for everything to be all right is to off him.
Kill him!
Yeah. And then he falls into the hands of like Satan and his like kind of henchmen, and like I don't know, you kind of get a barbed comment at like kind of capitalism and like business, like, do you know what I mean? Big business.
What?
Well, there's a moment when like Moreau, Nadja, and Johnny Blaze are kind of scoping out like this ceremony that's going to take place, and it has to take place on the dawn of a new day. And they're looking upon, and they're like, "Oh, who are all those people?" And they're like, "Oh, they're people, they're businessmen, and like." They're minions of the devil.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so
that makes it like Kill List. It's got the same crazy vibe.
Yeah, so it's got that thing of
that's
like,
interesting.
Do you know what I mean? It's got that Illuminati vibe. Like all the people upstairs are like,
just the director's just like slipping that in there, like have a bit of that.
So like, but like,
one other thing I was going to say, I love Idris Elba's accent is terrible in the film. He keeps shifting. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But something about him, whenever he's around, he restores my faith in what I'm watching. I don't know if that's because he's so robust. Like even when he puts his hand on Cage's shoulder, I sometimes felt like I could feel his hand on my shoulder. He's got that kind of tactile performance. I can't even describe that. He's unique in that way. But sorry, go on.
For Idris Elba, this has got to be like kind of before he became a massive household name as well, right? Like this is
he must have been doing Luther. He must have been doing Luther at the time, right?
But I mean, on like the world scale, like
yeah, sure. It was before. I mean, he hadn't yet become an actual part of the true MCU franchise as well, right?
And one of the weird things about his character in both this and Thor is that like he wears these like kind of bright-eyed contacts.
Yeah. It's bizarre. But also, he says like there's a bit like oh fuck, I've lost my other notes. But like Cage says something like what does he say? He says like God, I can't remember. Oh yeah, he's like black French alcoholic priest, kind of a dick. You know him? You know that line?
Yeah.
He says it in the van or whatever. And I was laughing at that line because it's a great line, and I can imagine writing it in the script and being like, "That's a fucking hell of a line." But weirdly, we don't see him as much of an alcoholic. He doesn't really drink that much. At the beginning, he throws a bottle through a window. That's about it. And then later on, when he has the wine, he takes like 2 glugs of it and then chucks it at an enemy, basically. But what I was thinking is, you could actually make a kind of interesting drinking game out of Ghost Rider. Purely like you drink when Idris drinks, you know. but it would be a really like hard drinking game to really enjoy. But you'd have to like drink a lot when he does. I don't know. But also when Cage first punches the devil, I was immediately reminded of the Wicker Man because it's a running punch. So
Yes.
he's literally like going toward him like bam, like just like the bear, just in the bear suit, you know. And I was like, is that the? I mean, maybe now you're into the analytics of the Cage films. You could tell me, are these the only 2 running punches in Cage films? Are there more running punches?
I haven't delved that deep into it, but like I'm gonna go with a yes. I'm gonna go with these are the only 2 running punches, but I'm sure possibly not. I feel like Con Air might have one. I feel like that.
Oh really?
What? I feel like the fight with Cyrus the Virus. Oh, yeah. Speaking about viruses, it's a very touchy time at the moment.
Beetlejuice.
got corona. I feel like on that final showdown with Cyrus the Virus at the end of Con Air, there may be some kind of running punch, or
Oh wow!
I'm not sure.
God, I hope there is, man. I hope someone's done a fucking montage of running punches, because damn,
Just like
so
Tom Cruise running in films.
yeah. Oh God, I've only got one last note to actually
No.
actually say.
You go
So
ahead,
I just
man.
want to get it out. There's that weird scene. I'm just going to admit this now. I wasn't always aware of what was going on in the film when I was watching it. Like, I actually had to go back a couple of times to hear the characters speak about stuff again, just to know it. And I don't know if that's because I'm drunk. I don't know if it's because I'm ADHD kind of, or whether or not the film wasn't doing a good enough job of like telling me what was going on. But I had to go back sometimes. But there's this crazy scene where like Cage is on his back and he's like flailing around and transforming. It's sort of bizarre. And he's like, "Merry Christmas, you assholes," or something like that. And I was like, that is fucking fantastic.
Well, there's some really weird, bizarre lines in this film. There is like, and it's subtitled as well, this line, so it like makes it even more bizarre because you have to read it. There is a moment with a like a very small bit part villain called Vasil, who like is kind of like,
Oh, I know.
like some kind of like club owner, drug dealer who has information where Carrigan may be. And like his introduction, he's kind of going like, "Where's my money? Like where? Like people keep stealing my money." Like, and this line I've like got quoted here is, "Everybody's robbing from me. It makes my balls hurt."
Oh yeah, this is a weird line. I thought that at the time. I remember listening to it, thinking, "What the fuck is he talking?" I think they're saying. I think what they mean is it's a ball lake. I think, and it's been like weirdly. It's like such a ball lake being stolen from all the time. I think that's what they mean, but it's kind of weirdly translated.
Yeah. It feels like the Google Translate of like. Do you know what I mean? Like they haven't gone through the effort of going people in that region don't have WhatsApp, so we'll change the subtitle to something that's region specific. Or do you know what I mean? Like
Also,
something that's like, yeah, we won't change it region specific. We'll just direct translate it. Yeah. It makes my balls hurt.
I love that. I mean, I kind of wish, in a way, I sort of wish I'd watched the first film before. I wish I'd sort of got this shit ready a bit earlier and watched the first film, then the second film, right next to each other, so I could compare. I mean, I think, like I said, I think the Devil's a better Devil this time around. I actually, you were saying that the look or the kind of general vibe of the new villain, the Blackout, is worse or is a bit shit, but he's still better than the other one, I think.
Oh yeah,
Who was the other?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of updates. There's a lot of things that they're doing better. They're kind of progressing on, but somehow it doesn't have as much kind of flow as the original has. Maybe there was just more money in that. I don't know what it was exactly, but there's a bit more sort of flow in that first one.
Well, I often worry that like because Neveldine and Taylor made their names sort of on being like they can provide you this kinetic like thrill ride, like whip smart cinema on a shoestring budget, like whether that be the Crank films, Gamer, up until this point.
I love Gamer as well. I love that.
So like I'm not sure whether it's like that and they went, do you know what? We'll give this film a very like modest budget. They'll make something good out of it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think this is before like David S. Goyer kind of like really came into his own of being like a household name, whether that be like in writing. Because I know he eventually did work with Christopher Nolan, I think. With
yeah, totally. Well, is that true then? Because that's bizarre. Because I remember hearing about funny in the last in the podcast you were doing the can't remember if it was with the Empire guy or the other one, but you were talking about Superman Lives briefly, and I think David S. Goyer was responsible for one of those scripts for a kind of big Superman reboot. Well, not that one, but one of them. So I was kind of surprised by this because, you know, it's not, as I say, it's not that the script is awful by any means, but it's just, it doesn't have that kind of triumphant feel of, you know, some great superhero script, you know.
Well, I always get a bit like iffy on scripts. Like, this is not to say like that scripts are like bad because of this, but like the screenplay for this is written by Scott M. Gimble, Seth Hoffman, and David S. Goyer, like from a story by David S. Goyer.
Too many cooks.
Yeah, I always get that like kind of image, and then especially because up until this point, Neveldine and Taylor had been writer directors, kind of going off their own, and they very much like had a hard time with like Jonah Hex, like writing the script for that.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah,
being like slated to direct it, and then I believe they walked away from the project because they didn't like the way it was going.
I thought they were fired from the project. That's fascinating. I mean, I think the script is available from Jonah Hex, what they originally wrote, and it's so much better. I mean, there's definitely the beginning of their script begins with like a crow pecking out the brains from a dead man's skull. Like, and like, I mean, when Josh Brolin signed up for that movie, he was like, no swear words, no gore, no nothing. I'm becoming a dad, you know. So you can see how these productions get kind of neutered from day one.
But whereas this, I feel like it would have really benefited from that grim, grotesque energy.
Also, yeah, Ghost Rider is. Once again, I don't mean to be mean to it. In a weird way, I actually have quite kind of a soft spot for Ghost Rider, but it's one of those franchises where, I mean, I doubt that Marvel would really care if they lost it. You know what I mean? They wouldn't care if it just went away. You know, and that's the beauty of it is that then you can do whatever the fuck you want with it. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Well, when asked in an interview, like Cage answered, like when somebody asked him, "What would you like to see be done if there were a sequel for this?" and he was like, "Well, the only sequel I'd like to see is Ghost Rider Goes to Hell in kind of like a Dante's Inferno style, like plot." And like you think, wow, like in the
that's actually a lot more. That's actually more similar to what the fucking script was based on as well. That the Garth Ennis one, because it's him in hell constantly repeating on a loop his suffering. He's constantly burning, and he has to go through this like lake of fire and shit. And he's constantly driving his motorbike and just feeling pain. It's that kind of that actually talking about suffering. That's what both of these films are. The first one and Spirit of Vengeance don't have. They don't really show Johnny Blaze suffering.
Well,
they don't make us feel that pain.
Well, weirdly,
as heavy as that is.
Yeah. No. But like that's something they should have gone for. And like weirdly, this is like the second film under the Marvel Knights banner. I'm not sure if you noticed in the like titles.
Is that the Punisher one? Is that the fucking one that was on that Punisher label?
Yeah, but Punisher Warzone, which was an 18.
Yeah.
So like if
so why can they do it with Punisher but they can't do it with this?
That's what I mean. Like I feel like this, like the first Ghost Rider very much hampered this film in that the core fan base had been established by the first film. That by the time they came to this one, it's like it would seem very like polarizing to all of a sudden it be a hard R or do you know what I mean? Or not even a hard R, just being like a 15 certificate in the UK. It would have it would have been like a bit disorientating for audiences, but at the same time, like this film kind of disregards the first film anyway. So why couldn't they have done that?
Not?
Yeah, why not? Because like I'm not saying that like swearing with violence and like nudity makes for a good film.
No.
But I feel like in this case, violence, nudity, and swearing would have made for a good film.
Yeah, definitely would have made it a lot better. And also, I love to imagine literally like the guys who directed Crank, they have no rules, no laws, maybe twice the budget. Like same locations, same script. They do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, I can only imagine how cool that would have been.
It would have been fucking gnarly. Like it would have, like I reckon we would have seen like Cage like turned up to like 11, just like going for it. Do you know what I mean? He would have brought that same energy from that Terry Wogan clip where he kind of comes out doing a stomp, flinging money out. Like, we would have like he would have been like whipping his chain out like fuck you. If like, do you know what I mean? Like if any character in the MCU deserves that kind of like treatment of being like a really gritty, hard, top like rated film, it's Ghost Rider. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's very much evil in his essence. He's in cahoots with the fucking devil, which like brings me to like the genesis of this film, which is fantastic. From like watching Nicolas Cage interviews, he talks about like he had an idea for like where this film could have like come from, and he said like whilst promoting the first film, he very much at that time liked wearing a lot of leather and like that kind of look.
Of course,
anyway,
yeah.
This isn't a far leap from the man himself. Anyway, he got invited to something at like I think it's like Canterbury Cathedral, or like he met like the Archbishop of Canterbury and the head of the like Greek Orthodox Church. A lot of like kind of religious leaders in their like fields. And,
what the hell is going on with this meeting?
I have no idea, but like they're all dressed up in their like garb, and Cage is dressed up in his garb, and I'm not sure who it was, but somebody turned to him and said like, "Oh, I could be naughty sometimes."
No way.
And it sparked in Cage this idea that like, how good would it be if Johnny Blaze was in cahoots with like religious figures,
with the Catholic Church,
with
or
the church,
yeah.
And like that's where that kind of came from, and it's just bizarre to like think that like
it's weird. The movie, you know, for all the things I love about it, it doesn't feel like that at all. I weirdly, I don't feel like anyone works for anyone. It just doesn't have that feeling. You're not like, oh, he has to do this because of this. I mean, I was super confused when they initially talked about the child, and I must say as well, I hate child actors for the most part. I know it seems a mean thing to say, you know, because I appreciate it's fucking hard work. You know, I'm a terrible actor myself, so but being a child is even fucking harder. You know, and the kids do such a bad job. He's not the worst child actor, but that kid is one of the blandest kids I've seen in like that kind of role.
He's kind of like dead behind the eyes. He's like not really giving much. Like the only moment he really gives anything is when he screams into Johnny Blaze's mouth to like kind of inject him with the life of the Ghost Rider once again at the end. Like,
which is a cool scene, actually. Yeah. I love it when he's rocking around the Colosseum with his burning head around the monks. That's actually really good. But yeah, you're right. That is the only intensity that he gives, really.
But it gets to a point, like even that moment, like it's just signposted really, really like I don't. Yeah, it's signposted really badly, in that he's asking all these questions to the devil, and he's like, you see the looks between like Johnny Blaze and Danny, and it's like, oh, he keeps asking the devil like, oh, so I have the same powers if you do, I? So I can do everything that you can I? And it's just like, yeah, we get it. We know what you're going to do. Like, this wouldn't be a Ghost Rider film if the Ghost Rider doesn't come out. Do you know what I mean? It's like, the only way I can describe it is like a band, like kind of, you know, they're going to play their biggest hit. Like even when the Ghost Rider, gets his powers taken away from him and he's just Johnny Blaze. It's like, even at that moment, I was like, he's gonna be turned back into the Ghost Rider because like one like he's got to do it for the final fight sequence, and two, I'm just too much of a cynical bastard, and I know that like studio.
There's also
for like.
there's also a bit of a there's also sorry to interrupt you again, man. There's a bit of a bummer when like originally he gets shot with a shotgun. Do you remember? It's all more towards the beginning. He gets shot with a shotgun, and he just gets up. And I can't remember how it was in the first film, but basically, is that implying that no amount of firepower can take down Ghost Rider? Because I didn't know. I was like, I never felt worried for Ghost Rider during any fight scene because I thought, well, he will be okay because he's Ghost Rider, so he'll be fine. You need to. Even Superman has his kryptonite, but what is Ghost Rider's like? What is his flaw?
Well, no, because it's very bizarre because right at the beginning, like one of the first confrontations he is harmed and he ends up in hospital. But then from that point on,
that is after that shotgun. That is after the shotgun.
Yeah, it's like some kind of grenade launcher shotgun thing. He's harmed, but then after that, it's kind of like the gloves are off and he can't be harmed. Like I don't know. It's a very weird like prospect.
I've always thought that's one of the major issues with any superhero entity is getting the audience to care about whether or not they're harmed. And I think this is an example of a film where, as you say, like it's hard for us to completely, connect with Ghost Rider, and it's also hard for us to worry about him because we don't know if he's invincible or not.
Yeah, and it's like, again, I feel like where the first film might have hampered this is like the kind of the rules weren't established fully. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if we need like kind of Basil exposition to be there and be like, so as a Ghost Rider, this, and this. Like, if this happens, you will be harmed. I don't know. If it's the stroke of 12, you will turn back into a pumpkin. Like, whatever it may be. Like, we just need to.
Are you aware, Petros, that there is another Ghost Rider within the MCU as well?
Yes, in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen that. Yeah.
But it isn't the Johnny Blaze character, is it? It's like
like another dude.
Roberto Reyes, I think, is the character. Yeah. So very much playing within that. I think they're playing within that sandbox, like, again, to keep their balls in the air, just in case they want to carry on the Johnny Blaze story but from everything I've read, it seems like nobody is interested very soon after this.
I don't know why they're flogging that horse.
Very soon after this film came out, Cage was like, no. Like, he said, like, there's no chance they're going to do Johnny Blaze in hell. Like, so probably not going to happen. But, like, before we wrap this thing up, Bob, I always like to ask my guests a little, like, 3 questions. 3 simple questions. And they normally, like, give us an indication of whether a Cage film is good or not. I'm yet to find out what answers swinging which way. I guess that's why I'm asking these questions to kind of find that data out to figure that out. But, first question is, does Nick Cage have bad hair in this film?
I mean, I don't know if I've just watched so many films that I'm not noticing it anymore, but I didn't think so, no.
Okay, that's a no for that one then. The second question is, does Cage do a crazy voice in this film? Does he have like a mental voice? Obviously, in films in the past, do you know what I mean? Vampires Kiss. We know the hits I'm talking about. Like,
he doesn't do it throughout, but there are about 3 or 4 occasions where he suddenly puts it on, including the one that I mentioned earlier. The whole like fucking what's it called? Merry Christmas, you assholes! That whole line is like he does it in a crazy voice, and he does the whole. What's the other bit about the scraping the door?
Yeah. Well, he does one where he's like, I Cage kind of like delivers a line like, "When you get there," like he pulls that out of the bag. Like it's very like.
Yeah. What I like is that kind of means that he has a penance voice.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. But also one thing I was just going to mention. Sorry, I know you were asking another question, but
of course.
Also the penance stare in the last film was done better. That's the one thing that first film really has over this one, is that when he stared into their eyes, you saw a kind of like tornado of like faces and shit. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and it kind of like flashed up like scenes of them doing bad as well, right?
Yeah, that was fucking sweet, and they didn't do this in this one, so I was kind of disappointed. But the only weird thing you see is like when he's doing a penance stare in someone's eye, their eye goes a bit wonky. That's the only thing you see.
And that brings me to my like third and final question on this little questionnaire that I've got going: is do we get a Cage freak out?
I think it's the fucking Christmas asshole bit.
Yeah.
That is the freak out. Right? That is it.
Yeah.
Or perhaps on the bike, perhaps the fucking like crazy like that. Maybe I don't know, but he doesn't. Yeah, I would say the Christmas asshole bit is the freak out. So yes.
Yeah, we get a Cage freak out. And like the last thing, like I want to ask you is, would you recommend people watching this film?
That is a fucking tough question. I think it really depends. It depends who I'm talking to. I guess I think, you know, this is what I'm saying. If there was a sort of bizarre drinking game attached to it, I can imagine why I might suggest that. Like drink every time Idris Elba is on the screen or something. It's kind of funny, but no. I'd say no.
Like, don't worry, Bob. Like, I'm not selling you down the river. I answer this question as well. I would say no as well, just in the fact that, like, I don't know. I would say the only reason to watch it is just like if you're interested in that idea of films that like have so much potential. Like this film has, like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's almost like watching Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary, because it's like you can see the scraps of a film that it could have been, and like the potential from like immense talent that is within it, whether that be Neveldine, Taylor, or Cage. Like
I personally, as I think we've talked about this. I love Gamer. You love Gamer as well. I love both the Crank films. I like that kind of stuff. I've met lots of people who really don't dig that kind of shit. And so it's the same thing that I probably will at some point watch this movie again, but I wouldn't recommend it because I know it's my kind of trash. It's kind of hot trash. I like it.
Well, like, you know? my thing is with like the whole, the directors of this film always, like, I would say they reinvented the action film. Like those Crank films kind of like really gave license to a lot of directors to be like, do you know what? Films can be what they are on the tin. It doesn't have to be smart. It doesn't have to be clever. It can just be fun, dumb action and be self-aware, knowing, and be fucking awesome. Like I personally,
You're absolutely right.
I personally don't think we would have got a lot of these later, like.
They also these guys, and it's a rare thing to find in anything. You either basically, if artists start making films, they're long, boring slogs that sometimes have interesting bits in them. And if you get like Fast and Furious dudes making a film, there's no art to it whatsoever. There's no beauty, no poetry. It's just constant cuts to like fucking, you know, car chases. What's beautiful about these guys is that Crank is kind of both. You get this magic of the car chase, the action, the fucking guns, all this kind of stuff, the really punchy dialogue, and you also get this kind of arty poetry. Like I remember in Crank where he's running around the hallway and they're projecting things onto the wall like turtles having sex and stuff. It's so arty, but it's also fucking entertaining and like punchy. I love it.
Well, it's that thing, like, especially with those guys, like, it's just that, like, that weird, bizarre thing. And, like, you mentioned the Fast and Furious films, but I feel like even with those films, like, we wouldn't have got, like, maybe, like, the fifth installment of that without this. Like, well, no, not without this, without like kind of their like Neveldine and Taylor's like imprint on cinema, like with those crack
Fair
films.
enough. They're informed by the changes they made.
Yeah, like people realize like you can, and like one of the things I would love to see, like, and I'm putting it out there, whether like I'm not sure because this is the last Neveldine and Taylor outing that we saw cinematically. Like
That's mental.
after that, we saw them go separate ways. So like I'm not like I don't want to speculate at all, but like we don't know what happened like there, and like it's not for us to say, but I would love to see those guys take on a John Wick film.
Oh yeah. Fuck, I can imagine that'd be so cool. That very like on the fly kind of crazy DV look style, like we're right here. Yeah, I can imagine that being brilliant. Yeah.
And here's a question I've just come up with on the fly. Is like it's kind of come up recently a lot is in conversations with people. Is who would you like to see Nicolas Cage collaborate with, like in the future? Like what director partnership do you like? Do you think like for?
I can immediately. I know who it is immediately. It immediately came to my brain. Yorgos Lanthimos.
Oh, do you have like,
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Did I fuck it up?
As a Greek man, Yorgos Lanthimos is a perfect pronunciation.
I would love to see. I have no idea what the role would be, but I would love to see those guys work together.
Perfect. That's what I hit. Like yeah, like one of the conversations I had recently was about like how he hasn't had the opportunity to be brought on board by like a kind of A24 certified director, and Yorgos Lanthimos is very much one of them. And like the one I keep going back to, I think it's because I saw a clip of Nicolas Cage at the Independent Spirit Awards hugging Josh Safdie, and I just keep thinking,
shit!
Like,
that would be so cool.
Nicolas Cage in a Safdie brothers movie would be like he needs that kind of that, or he needs a vehicle like a John Wick that like can kind of be his retirement plan, as it were. Do you know what I mean? Like how.
Yeah. I mean, I love this in interviews as well. I really love this kind of contemporary Cage where he looks kind of like Elvis. He's sort of taken on his ex-wife or ex-wife's father's ghost, and he kind of wears he's got his hair is fucking perfect and slightly white, and he just with the aviator shades. I'd love to see kind of that character of Cage in something. I don't know what, but that would be perfect.
Well, we're likely to get something in that ilk because like it's slated for next year, but like with everything that's going on at the moment, we're likely
Who knows?
Yeah. God knows when it will come out, 2022, 2023. But he's supposed to be like he's cast in a film called The Importance of like Brilliance or something like that. I will.
Oh yeah, I know what it is. It's a really complicated title. That's the kind of thing you should have above your head, eh?
Yeah. It's the type of thing I should have in my notes. But like genuinely, like, this conversation has just brought this up anyway. But like, it's Nick Cage playing himself, and I hope that they very much zone in on a modern day Cage. Like they don't try and go for this is what we think Cage is. Like we want actually who you are as a person. Like I saw a brilliant tweet. Like to go back to my like Safdie brothers thing is I saw a tweet. Like which kind of like really put me on the trajectory to think like that would be a perfect casting like partnership. Is that I saw a tweet that was like, at the Safdie brothers, can you please direct a quarantine lockdown like drama with Nick Cage, who plays a like sex addict, like on his computer all the time, and like shit goes wrong, and like it's really intense. Like, and I was like, yeah, that is perfect. Or like my personal one, you'll probably hear this on plenty of like podcasts of this when this question comes up, but like my one is it opens up, Cage is there, He's coming like it's a revenge film. It's a Safdie brothers like film there. It's very like intense, right? Minute 30, he kind of catches up with one of the goons of this gang and he's like, what the fuck have you done to my brother Howie? And then it's then we realise this is actually a Uncut Gems sequel.
Oh, wow. That'd be fantastic. Just as fast-paced, just as mental and like harrowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Cage. Oh,
Cage playing like some kind of like New Jersey, like, do you know what I mean? Like tracksuit wearing scumbag who like Howie's been like shunned him to the sides, or he's just got out of prison. He's gone to find out where his brother is. Even better, this has come to me just now. Cage comes out of prison, goes to see his brother, like find out where he is. It like intersects with the end of Uncut Gems. Spoiler warning for Uncut Gems. He walks into the jewellery shop, sees his brother dead on the floor. Bang. Revenge thriller.
Oh, wow. Yeah, fuck. I mean, there's no one but Cage could really do that justice. That's a fantastic idea. Although, you know, if I could see any sequel with Cage in it, I would love to see the Wicker Man sequel where he plays a ghost haunting Japan.
That amazing. That clip I played, it feels like probably forever ago now. He's actually asked in that interview, like, what film would you like to revisit? And he says, I would love to see Wicker Man in Japan.
I'd love to see it too. That'd be so fucking brilliant, man.
Unfortunately, we're probably never going to see it, are
we? Probably not. Only in our minds. The theatre of quarantine.
Perfect. Well, Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Man.
As always, man, it's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure you'll crop up another time before this journey.
Hope so, man. I'm cheap.
And there we have it. That was me and Bob talking about Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. If you agree with the points that me and Bob made, or even if you disagree, please get in touch at Caged In Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or always drop an email at cagedinpod@gmail.com. Before you go, you may find there's a little treat in your podcatcher right now. Yes, you can listen right now to an interview I did with one of the directors of this film and director of Mum and Dad, the 2017 horror comedy starring Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair, and the interviews with Brian Taylor. It's a fantastic interview. I've been sitting on this for ages and really didn't know when to drop it, and I thought now's better time than ever, just because, yeah, Ghost Rider, and I don't know, waiting all that time until I've released the Mum and Dad episode. I feel like, I don't know, this is a good one, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this one, and yeah, don't worry about the Patreon. I don't want any of your money. As I mentioned in the intro, donate your money, please, to charities right now. Donate them to helping people. We've got a chance to help people, so fucking do it. All right. Well, as always, guys, you have been amazing. I have been Petros. I have been Caged In. Bye-bye.